Okay, let's do it. So, you comfortable?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. How did you hear about this podcast? Or how did you hear
Um, I
about us?
I think it's a lot of intersecting circles of people who either live here now or from here that have been opening new business and opening, new creative virtual businesses and stuff. So I've been really good friends with Cesar for years now, and ever since he kind of pulled me back to the desert to do paintings for him and things like that, I've been interacting with a lot of people that are associated with his business too. So that kind of is a ripple effect on how I'm like discovering your podcast and, different people that are creatively involved with your guys' businesses.
That's a nice way to stay connected with the desert. Hey guys, welcome back to the Sea Planner podcast. My name is David, I'm your host, and I have a very special guest here with you guys. Her name is Gabby Vasquez.
Yes, Blandino Vasquez.
Ba- Bendino?
Blandino.
Blandino Vasquez.
Italian and
Italian?
Mexican.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So a flag just gets the ego sometimes, and right? I'm just kidding.
Dude, it's the best combination food wise, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, the pasta and the spicy.
Yes, literally, those two is my diet.
So let's let's dive right into it. I I personally got a glimpse of all your art. I think I was walking downtown Palm Springs, and I
Hmm.
saw your name on a bench.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you got into the Palm Springs art scene?
Yeah. So it first started out when the PS Public Arts first got together. They had this exhibition at
Mm-hmm.
the art museum, the Palm Springs Art Museum,
Okay.
for it was a proposal for public art, and it was kind of this open exhibition for people to submit ideas for public artworks in Palm Springs, whether it be a sculpture or a mural or anything like that.
Was that a long time ago, or was it
It
just recently?
was 2 summers ago.
Okay, so right before the pandemic, for sure.
Yes, pre pandemic.
Okay.
It was summer of 2018, I believe, or 19.
But
2019,
but
yes.
you weren't living out here, were you?
No.
You originate from where right now? Like
Um,
you're from Palm Springs.
yes. I grew up in Cathedral City, went to Palm Springs High School. Right after high school, I moved out to Los Angeles. I went to school at FITM in downtown. I only went to college for 2 years, and
Yeah,
I've.
just keep giving us more information about you. So you
Mhm.
uh lived in Cathedral City.
Yeah, we'll back it all on
Yeah,
up.
well,
Yeah.
let's get people to know because you're from here, right?
Yes.
And so let's grow some roots and see.
Yes.
Um, a lot of people might know you from living out or going to Palm Springs High School. In high school, did you know that you wanted to be an artist?
No. So I've been painting my whole entire life. And growing up here back, when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of budget going into like arts and stuff. There weren't a lot of programs. So I found myself in every after school art program, art class. In high school, I took art for 4 years. And then by senior year, I was an art TA. So I was helping like teach art.
But was that just like a hobby, or was that
Yeah,
some?
like I never saw myself as like an artist, or like I never thought that I fit the mold of what like an fine artist was. Like
Like you couldn't make it in the big scene.
yeah, and I just felt like my personality didn't mix. I grew up playing sports. I played soccer my whole life. I'm not very some people would describe me that now, but I'm not. I didn't see myself as very eccentric or, very outside of the box.
Okay.
I just was. I'm a straight shooter and a sporty girl, so like I just didn't see myself as like this like whimsical
Okay.
thing that I thought artists were. So like that in my mind was never really a thing. And I went to school and I started in fashion.
But wait,
Yeah.
before you went to school,
Hmm.
how was the application process? Like, where
Mm, good
because
question.
I remember having to apply to a bunch of schools and making decisions according to the things that I liked.
Right.
So you applied to school or to schools, or
Hmm.
how was that?
So that's such a good question because I am so glad that at the young age I was that I had enough self-awareness that I knew that a normal university was not going to be a good fit for me. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I'm highly dyslexic and I always was like a C student. I would work my ass off and I would not get A's. Like
Is that the Mexican in you?
yeah, actually, my dad is Mexican and he had dyslexia.
I think we jumble up the way we think, and
Yeah.
so it like kind of because I suck at spelling, and
Yeah.
I'm a
Hmm.
graphic designer as well.
Yes,
So
same.
um, I think that's an ongoing thing with designers that we don't really care about spelling. We care about shapes and how words
Hmm.
make up the space and all that stuff. So we're not
Hmm.
pretty good at spelling. So
Exactly.
you thought that if you went to a school that really focused on what you wanted, you would be happy?
Yeah. So, like, I definitely wanted to go to a school that where my interests lie.
Okay.
Like I didn't want to force myself into what everyone else was doing, and I found that out because I did a lot of soccer camps at different universities.
Oh, okay.
And I was able because
So you traveled a lot
hmm
before you got to the age of.
yeah, before basically junior year of high school, I decided that I wasn't going to go to a 4 year university, and I applied to fit in that year and committed my junior year.
Oh,
As
nice.
opposed to everyone else doing applications and stuff senior year. I was like, nope, I know this is it for me. It was very strange that I just knew. I knew what program I wanted to do, and they didn't require an SAT, and that was a huge thing for me.
Okay.
Like I took a practice SAT, and I remember being called in the office at school, and they were like, "You're gonna need some help." Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, I failed so badly that they were like,
But
you need some help.
that's very cool of you that you're sharing this because there's a
Yes,
lot of people that find themselves thinking that they have to fit a certain norm to be successful, and
totally.
that's very cool that you're letting people know that because um, some people might be geniuses but haven't found a person to help them,
Totally.
blossom.
I was totally self conscious about, getting my papers back at schools and there being like a big D on it in front of everyone else. And like,
Wow.
I didn't know where I fit in academically. And I was a big floater socially. So like I had, friends that were in all the AP classes and, it came more natural to them. And then I was, I was in, just
Sports.
regular classes and I was in sports and, had friends that, weren't doing so well either. So I was definitely didn't know like where I fit in, what I was going to do. And when Fidim visited our school and I read about the visual communications program, it was like that program was like right in the center for me, where it was like it had marketing and graphic design and a lot of technical stuff, but it also had like all of the creative work that went with it. And I did a lot of illustration and install work, like art installations and things like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What was is there any local artists that also fed to your love of art? Was or were or maybe even famous artists that you kind of.
I always studied art history, and it was a lot of like um, old artists that you learned about that really inspired me. Like Monet is my favorite painter.
Oh, nice.
So it was really only that like had a huge influence, and social media wasn't like that big yet until
Right.
like 2012, 2011. So by that time, I've already made my decision. So, like, growing up, I only had like fine artists that I read about in history to look up to. There wasn't a lot of local art going on. There was, but it seemed it was just very disconnected from the youth. Like they weren't, exposing the youth to arts like they are now.
So maybe not being so inspired by art in front of you. I'm just trying to figure out you could because you were a 4 year artist, right? A 4 year varsity soccer player.
Yeah.
And how come you didn't go that route? How come you were so adamant about the art and
Hmm.
not maybe getting, or was it too many things, too many, like you said, SATs, too
Yeah.
many whatever to
The
maybe
schooling.
the schooling
Yeah.
was okay. So that kind of narrowed down
Hmm.
what you were gonna go and do.
Right, and especially for women, it's a lot more of a narrow path when it came to pursuing soccer. So like, I just knew I that wasn't for me because it was so attached to a 4-year university. And I would visit those universities and they would not only was it a soccer camp, but they would like show us inside the classrooms and like, what it would be like to go there. And I would freak out and I'm like, I'm not going to survive.
Plus, there's a lot of other variables, whether it's competing with other girls to stay on the spot, like
Mhm.
keep your spot, and then to go professional as a soccer player is very limited. Like even the very well-known names weren't making or aren't making the proper money or the.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was really your foresight was very
Mhm.
mature when you were young to
Yeah.
go and do that. But even then, like an artist, a lot of parents would say, "Hey, you're not gonna make a living
Mhm.
painting walls."
Right.
How was it that you
Mhm.
said, "I'm gonna do like murals and like installations and stuff"?
Mhm.
Because you could easily played it safe and said, "You know what? I'm just gonna do like t-shirts and or just graphic design for."
Right. That didn't come until later. And that's where I got lucky, is because I had parents who, both my mom and my dad, really just normalized me being able to do whatever it was I
Oh, that's
wanted to
super
do.
sweet.
And they didn't even make a big deal about it. The fact that they were so nonchalant about like me doing whatever it was I wanted to do, it seemed normal to me. Like it wasn't like this extravagant thing. Like you can go out there and, you can be an artist, you can be this, they can be that. It's like whatever I wanted to do, they were just cool with and they believed in me 100%. So it just seemed none of these decisions I made seemed like advanced or out of the norm. It seemed normal to me that I was like, okay, this is it. Like I didn't.
Your parents never put up walls before they
Mm.
were even there. So everything was open.
Yeah.
Every option was open for you.
Yeah.
I agree with that as a parent. Me and my wife are gonna my wife and I were gonna have a
Yeah.
baby,
I
and so
saw that.
everything, thank you. Everything that we're doing is like leading up to me thinking about those kind of decisions, like whether what kind of a father I'm gonna be, um, how I'm going to be teaching my
Mhm.
child. And my dad did that with me. My mom and my dad, they gave us the ability of always dreaming beyond the things that were in front of us. So, for example, in school, I wanted to do this. I
Mhm.
wanted to be an architect. And then, like, last minute, I'm like, no, I'm just going to be a designer. And my dad never, like, they never
Right.
questioned anything. And then it was like a next job, the next job. And they were always like, hey, whatever you do, just try your best. So I think that your parents did a great job with that,
Yeah.
just with that
That was the
alone.
exact attitude that they had. And from the time I moved out until now, I just turned 27. I've had like a million different jobs. Like none of my friends can even like describe like what I do for a living, like what I do to make my earning. Like it's just been all over the place and that's okay. Like
Maybe we can start with the fashion
yeah.
going into school, and you can elaborate a little bit
Mhm.
more on that.
So at the very beginning, I just and this is where sports really like benefited me is I just like hustled. And like I at the very beginning when I moved there, I would start volunteering for events.
Mm-hmm.
So like there would be different like online resources and resources at school where they would need volunteers for like this fashion show, this, filming, whatever it was. I would just show up and like
Plug yourself in.
plug myself in. And my dad owned an audiovisual company growing up here. And so audio teching and stuff like I grew up with.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which is like a kind of just like a background interesting thing. And I was volunteering at this fashion show for this company, and their whole like AV system went down. Like they couldn't run the show.
What?
And so I just stepped in and like fixed everything and like made sure, like basically like became the producer. Like, and
Oh, wow.
I was like 18 years old, and I like fixed all their audio equipment. And then so the person that was throwing the show, she hired me on the spot. And that's where I started my career in marketing and graphic design. Yeah. So, that's, it's been hard for me to articulate like where my career started, but that was pretty much the moment where like someone hired me on the spot. And, that job presented a lot of opportunities, and it was kind of like that situation where it was like the devil wears Prada, but without the Prada. It was like, I was doing a lot and traveling, and I worked in, Japan with Mercedes-Benz Tokyo and like produced shows over there, and working with like AV teams that only spoke Japanese and like.
And this is straight out of high school.
Yeah. And I was still going to FITM while doing like all this stuff with this digital
Wow.
marketing agency and traveling. And
Is that why you only went to school for a couple years, or?
yeah, it was pretty much all I needed. And, again, like I kind of had this blind confidence that I didn't need anymore.
Plus, a lot of the times, like for instance, in your field, has anybody ever asked you like for your credentials? Has anybody said, "Hey, let me see your diploma," or "Let me see what school
No,
you went to"? Like,
absolutely not.
I just
No.
feel like people, even that, like, sometimes there's limitations that people set, but no one's ever either called them out, or
No.
those kind of things don't happen.
Mm-mm.
Whether you have the skill and you can back it up,
Mm-hmm.
that goes a long ways.
Totally. Yeah. There was many situations where I look back and I'm like, I probably could have lied and said I had a
Right.
bachelor's degree and whatever. Like,
Right.
definitely. No, not one person has like checked my credentials ever. So, I mean, just, it's, and even like me now, I kind of transitioned later into like marketing for restaurants and stuff. I like pretty much lied about my restaurant experience just to like get in the door, but it was all worth it.
What happened with that job, with the marketing job?
Right. So I stayed there for about 2 years, and like, I wasn't getting paid well. I was,
Oh, because you're
burnt
young.
out. Yeah.
They're just using you.
Oh my gosh. My boss at the time.
But that's usually how you start, right?
Right. I was, because, two different superiors that I've had throughout my whole career, who have been women, have both like used the excuse. This is where the degree came in. Use the excuse of not having a bachelor degree to pay me less, which is completely bullshit. And like when you're so young, like you don't think you can argue that.
Or step up, or speak for yourself and
Right.
say, "Hey, like that's not fair."
Right. Right. So, it got to a certain point, after 2 years, I was like, cool, I've been here long enough. Even though I wasn't getting paid what I should have, I did it so I could say I did X, Y, and Z.
Oh, okay. So it's just growing pains, basically.
Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. I quit. And then
You were going to school at the same time?
Mhm.
And then school's over.
School's over. A few months later, I quit that job.
Oh, okay. And you just
I've been working from home ever since, taking
really?
my own clients. Yeah.
doing the restaurant.
The marketing and graphic design. I didn't start in restaurants until last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
And-
I was working with like fashion and beauty brands and stuff like that up until that
Wow.
point. Yeah.
Hey, congrats. You've had a pretty juicy career so far.
It's been great for me, and I've been able to sustain myself the entire time. And you know, I got into, restaurants last year, and I'm like, oh my God, I should have been doing this entire time. It's
It's
so much fun.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you basically do their their from
Social media to advertising,
okay.
email marketing, anything that's digital, I manage. So, like, Google, Yelp, OpenTable, like all of their online presence. Like, my main restaurant that I'm working for right now is called Santuari, and it's in Toluca Lake in Los Angeles. And I just finished, they were rolling out spring cocktails, and I finished like all the cocktail photography, and we're, rolling out this week, rolling out a menu for Mother's Day. So, we have to, put it up on the website, design the menus. After the chef is done with the menu, I put the menus all together. So it's graphic design, it's photography, it's social media, it's advertising, email marketing.
You're a one person show.
Hmm.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, me personally, I would love to do all that stuff, but it doesn't feel me like
Hmm.
um not that I'm not trying to bash on what you
No, I
do.
get it because it didn't feel me until I started with restaurants because that was just more fun for me.
Right. And I think that's why I do the podcast because
Hmm.
I get to do this interpersonal. Like I'm in school right now. I'm learning from
Oh,
you.
okay.
You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally.
So every time somebody else comes in, like they leave an imprint in my life. It was whether it's like me having a different perspective, and I feel like this is such a cool because I've seen it. Like my aunts and my uncles, they're all very talented, and they're you know, um, like they're teachers, and they like my uncle's an architect in L.A. Like all this stuff, and I get to see it like vicariously,
Hmm.
but I've never had the I don't know if it's the courage to try to do it, but I think this fuels me a lot more. This
Hmm.
like being a part of a community and helping people um, get get their start is really fun. And so I think that's why I brought you in because um, you've worked out here in the desert with hermanos.
Hmm.
You've been doing some local
Hmm.
local work, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have also like a Instagram page
Hmm.
that no one knows about,
Yeah.
and
Very few people. Yeah.
that's really cool because you're basically doing the exact same thing I'm doing, but you're also doing like all this like professional
Hmm.
like it's really cool, and I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, sure. So it's called PS Locals Only. And it kind of came from Cesar because we used to go to Coachella all the time, and like he would always use like hashtag locals only when like all of us locals would get together, and it was kind
Oh,
of like
okay.
a reunion every time. So I kind of like got that idea, and it basically stemmed from just wanting to best serve the community and like in a way where I can use my skill sets and like, you know, it. Okay.
But why sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but why do you feel like you need to serve your community? Do you feel like you're still tethered here to the
Hmm.
desert, or you feel like you're coming back to the
Yeah.
desert?
So there's definitely some depth to that question for me. Growing up, my dad was very well known of
Mm-hmm.
serving the community,
Okay.
and he was a small business owner, but he also created Magic Sports.
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
Magic Sports?
Mm-hmm. He created that.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so a lot of people don't know the story of
Mm-hmm.
how Magic Sports was created. There weren't many club sports teams growing up. There was like for soccer, it was um, what's it called? The one in Palm Desert.
Desert United.
Yeah, Desert United, and then Power Baseball,
Mm-hmm.
and like it would cost people so much money just to have their kids play at the club level. So, my dad saw an issue with that and wanted to create his own club where it was completely volunteer based,
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit, and they wouldn't turn kids away.
Okay.
Even if they're, let's say if they don't even have the skill level, it's like he just believed it, and everyone could benefit from this, whether, they wanted to, play beyond high school, or, the parents are just trying to get the kids active. You know what I mean? It's just, and he created the name because he grew up with a lot of violence in his life, and he hated team names that like promoted violence. And so like a lot of his favorite songs like contain like magic in it, and so that's where he came up with the name Magic, because it was uplifting, it was positive. He didn't want to promote anything negative in kids' lives, and it blew up so big. Like a lot of people that I don't even know played with Magic Sports, and that's where I played club soccer as Magic.
Right.
And just seeing him devote like so much time to so many kids that were not his own, and
He was a father to
a lot.
Yeah.
And now, he passed away 2 years ago. And now, it's like I get a lot of inspiration from him, and I'm like, how can I best serve the community with what I know? He knew baseball, he knew softball, he coached girls softball, and I played soccer. He didn't even coach me. You know what I mean? And like he would show up to every single one of my games, even though he wasn't,
Sounds like a great father.
He was the best. So, I can't necessarily do that per se. Maybe when I'm older and have my own family.
But you're taking the baton right now, and you're running with it.
Yeah, and it's important. And where I see the gap is that there's a lot of businesses that we grew up with in the desert, especially businesses that are older, that don't have online platforms. They don't have the budget to hire a marketing person or a social media manager, and like that stuff's a job. Like it's hard to keep up with all that stuff. So I wanted to create a platform for all these tourists, and especially with the economy blowing up as it is out here, to have resources for all of these local businesses that are out here, whether they have a social presence or not. And there's a bunch of commercial business coming in with their own marketing teams, and it's like,
we need to take advantage before they eat up everything.
Yeah, exactly. And those businesses need to be elevated too, and the people that have grown up here and starting new businesses need to be elevated. And that's kind of like, that's been my expertise for years. So especially during the pandemic, I was so busy that I was barely able to come back out to the desert and stuff.
So it's business didn't slow down for you?
No.
It picked up?
Yes. It's been an exhausting year. And like the first article I put up on the website was Black-owned businesses during when George Floyd got murdered and everything like that. And I'm like, I barely have time to sleep, but like, what can I do to serve the community?
Even then, you were still trying to help.
Yeah, I didn't sleep for like a week, and that was the first article that was up, and it was completely fueled by the community. Like I posted, email your like favorite Black-owned businesses, like the whole.
This is all anonymously.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the purpose of that?
I mean, it's like I grew up out here. People, when you grow up here and go to high school out here, people like you or don't like you or whatever it may be.
Okay.
And I just wanted people to like enjoy the resource. It's out there for, people to use without any like bias behind it. And
I saw that the article that you did, and it really got it picked up some steam for sure.
There was a lot of traffic on the website, and like, and it's important, especially not only for people that live here, but the people that are traveling to the desert, not to just like look up the articles on Condé Nast on like the trendy spots to go to. You know what I'm saying? Like
or run with those certain stigmas that the desert has about different locations and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Like North Palm Springs and, Desert Hot Springs and like all these different places that like aren't getting the highlights from, different publications.
Right.
Even the local publications aren't, diving that deep.
I think we're doing a pretty good job for I mean, what we can, or I'm barely getting started
Right. Same.
doing all the
Same.
stuff that you're doing, but I see a lot of people, they yearn for this stuff.
Yeah.
And like I've reached out all the way to Coachella,
Mm-hmm.
Indio, and I have made my way back, and I can't wait to do projects out there again
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much love out here in the desert, but we're not captivating it and we're not showing it for what it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think our generation is definitely, if we don't do it, like no one's gonna do it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's up to us to let the next generation, and like you said, the, like for instance, the older restaurant owners,
Mm-hmm.
they need to they need to get caught up,
Right.
otherwise they're gonna be left behind.
Exactly.
I look at my parents, and there comes a point where they're like, oh, I'm checked out.
Right.
But if you own a
My dad did that.
business, you have to get on board or
Mm-hmm.
give it to somebody that's going to be able to carry on. I
Totally.
talk to a lot of the people that I meet. I go into businesses and I ask them like, what's your budget? What's your marketing budget? Usually a marketing budget for a business, certain business like in downtown Palm Springs, it's over $2,000, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And where are you spending this? And it's all antiquated types of like, like the newspaper,
Right.
like
Like
a,
print
a,
ads and stuff.
a
Yeah.
crappy radio station, or a TV station. No one's watching local cable. I mean, if they are, they're not out shopping or they're not out at the restaurant. You need to get onto like all the social media
Mm-hmm.
platforms, or engaging type of marketing.
Totally.
I don't know where I was going with this, but
And no, it's very true. And like, and I plan, there's a lot of plans for PS Locals Only.
oh,
And
that's super cool.
I really want to develop it not only with a publication that highlights businesses and, also creatives are businesses. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like the
Oh, right,
graphic
yeah,
designers
definitely.
and, so that's, I want to
The videographers and the.
Yes. So that is also something that, people need to keep in mind that are local businesses. So I really want it to be like a collective network so that businesses can have like direct access to a videographer or a graphic designer
Mm,
or like a social media person and really like connect those people so that the smaller business owners who don't know where to start can, have access to that stuff that's not costing them an arm and a leg and, kind of get some guidance in that area.
yeah, no, I agree. Your team could easily put together, even with those people. I know there's a lot of people that majored in English,
Right.
and they're like, I don't even know what to do with my, like I went to school and I'm like, well, I majored in journalism or marketing or public relations, and they can reach out to you and maybe be like, oh, let me write a column, or
Absolutely.
maybe do this, or let's work on a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start putting content that people can actually grab,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I don't know. It's just there's so much possibilities. Like I was talking to Eric Wilson and Garden
Yes.
just opened a market.
Yes, I plan on stopping by there after this.
Cool. And we were talking about making a magazine where all the local businesses, there's an ads like how
Right.
you see a Rolex ad or whatever, but a Las Palmas ad where it says like, take this little coupon, and
Mm-hmm.
like, just make it
Mm-hmm.
enticing where
That's
people.
kind of what I plan on doing virtually with, once I gain more website traffic, we can
Hmm.
utilize that into ad space for local businesses as opposed to
For
spending money
sure.
on print ads and things like that. And, it's it's very important to be transparent with the people you are working with,
Hmm.
and that's something that I see people struggle with a lot. The conversation about money and a lot of that of those tangible assets that go along with,
Right.
business relationships and deals and things like that. It's very hard for small businesses to really connect on that level because it's a more uncomfortable subject. And
Right.
I really like to kind of just make those conversations a lot more easy with the people I'm working with, and like normalize it a little bit more, and and try to provide ways that are a little more cost effective
Right.
with achieving what you can. There's always ways to achieve what you can. Like with my business personally, with digital marketing, if some businesses are like, I just can't like dedicate a monthly budget to this stuff, and I'm like, how about just like sit down with me for one day, and I can teach you a few things, and you can just pay me like a one-time fee, and I can like give you a whole guide on
Wow, that's really
how to
sweet.
run your accounts, and so you can invest your time rather than your money. There's always ways to get your business to elevate, in if you just think creatively. And that's where I want to like bridge that gap with this platform, is to be able to like talk about those things and have open conversations, and be
That's
honest about
super cool.
money, and survival. Like money is survival, so it's like it's such a taboo subject.
Right.
And I see the struggle, especially this year with the pandemic and everything, and it's like, let's talk about it. There's a way to, help. So that's kind of like where the thought process behind this business. And, it's a lot of back end work. And once I have that foundation with it, I think it'll just compound in its interest and,
Well, I'm
momentum.
glad I can help, and
Thank
I'll
you.
push this episode as hard as I can,
Thank you so
so that
much.
people, it's all about education, and plus it's
Hmm.
starting the conversation. You are initially putting out a certain energy. You're putting out positive energy, and so um, nothing bad comes from that. And I
No.
honestly think that being in Palm Springs and having such a small pool to pull from, and knowing, like you said, knowing, like if you grew up out here, people, they're either related to you, or
Hmm.
they're friends with a friend or whatever. Everybody knows each other, and so I think if we collectively push very hard on these ideals, either whether through Palm Springs
Hmm.
only, selected series, and all these other groups that are
Hmm.
working together, trying to elevate locals only, because I've had ideas or dreams or nightmares, you
Yeah.
can call them, that one day you're walking or you're going in downtown and you don't know anybody there, and it's like, yo, like, so they just took over.
Hmm.
And so like I want to at least hold on as much as we
Hmm.
can, because there's so many people buying homes cash, just like buying a whole block. And
I know.
yeah, so it's like we're becoming the few, you know.
Hmm.
And I want to at least give people original content out here in the desert, and I'm glad that you're doing it as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I wanted to connect with you right away because it's pretty much different avenues of the same thing. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're here for the same reason. And that goes along with painting too, and that's like what also I do. It brings a positive element to the city, and I don't even think we finished talking about how
Go ahead.
PS Public Arts came to be, but
Mhm.
so they had that exhibition 2 summers ago, 3 summers ago, 3 summers ago, actually. Now I don't know,
18.
2018, yeah.
Yeah.
And a bunch of different people, especially locals, got involved in that, and they pretty much just, I thought they were going to choose like one or two things to actualize, but I don't even know how many projects got turned into real life projects. It was
Mhm.
amazing. And like so many different artists got different pieces in the city. And that's where I painted my first mural with them, which is at the Palm Springs Cultural Center.
Mhm.
You'll see it as like the backdrop at the Palm Springs Farmers Market and the Vintage Market. It's like my biggest mural to date. It's 50 feet wide and like 32 feet tall or something like that.
It's like a Mirage, right?
Yeah,
What's it?
visiting Mirage.
Visiting Mirage.
Yeah, so if you're like way in the far back,
Mhm.
it's like a pixelated image that you could start to see. It's like the visiting center when you first drive in the San Jacinto Mountains.
Damn, that is a very big piece.
Yeah,
Y-
so at first you just see a bunch of squares, but if you're like driving way down and see it from afar, you could see like the image it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I just did a bench for them from
Mhm.
that big brunch project that they had with all these different artists. And the that's the first painting I've done where it's been so much foot traffic, like people walking by while I'm painting and things like that. And the biggest feedback I've gotten and it was mostly just about all the benches
Mhm.
collectively, not just mine, is that it just makes people happy. They just kept on saying like that
I
made me
agree.
so happy,
Yeah.
like to see all this artwork. And it's like, even if it's the most like plain Jane person from like Ohio or something, like it stimulates people. It like,
It's culture for
mhm,
sure.
mhm.
All these artists got commissioned
Yes.
back in 18, or are these new? Are these? Are you? Have you guys been adding artists along?
They've been adding artists along the way and adding more projects along the way that,
Like
you
the
know,
electrical boxes,
mhm,
the
they just keep adding
benches.
on.
You
Yeah.
guys are just gonna keep doing it.
I'm not a part of
You're
PS Public Arts. I'm
you're
just one of their
you're
artists
just one of their artists.
that
Okay.
worked with
But you're
them.
not working with them anymore. Like, have they?
Yeah, I just finished that bench in January,
Okay.
so I definitely plan to continue to work with them with
Uh,
whatever projects they
what is
have.
the commissioner's name?
Um, one
Oh, there's several.
there's a couple of people
Oh,
that work
okay.
at the top, and I'm not sure of the hierarchy, but Russell Pritchard is like someone that I work with a lot on
That was
these
your contact.
projects, like my
Okay.
main contact. And you know I am so grateful for them. I mean, they work so hard, and like, I propose a design or a painting or a project, and they do all the work. They go to all the meetings. They, get the
Oh,
budget
okay.
for the artist. They do all of the work, and artists literally get to just show up and paint and like
Are they able to, like, oh, so they provide everything. The
everything.
tools, the paint, everything.
Usually when you do sign on for a painting project, the client does, include that into the budget, so that is
Oh,
pretty
okay.
normal.
Mhm.
But all the back end work of negotiating and the permits and getting the budget from the city, it's like that stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of
Mhm.
effort, and they just do that themselves. And like
Hmm.
that's
Interesting.
that's really, a great service to artists.
I mean, we're still pumping out artists, and
Hmm.
I just want. I don't know who listens to my podcast. I don't. I keep track of statistics, but um, whoever does and they're interested in this stuff, are they very open to like people reaching out?
Submissions?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And they're not, and what I also love about them, they're not very like pretentious with this stuff. Like you don't have to be like a Monet to
Right.
get a project. You just have to be, willing to work with other people and like to,
Hmm.
present yourself. And they really are open to artists that are all ages, and they have a lot of different members of that organization that work with people of all ages, and different organizations within the local community that provide art services. It's pretty cool.
Um, maybe we can transition into. Have you did you hear about the art show that Flat Black had? Have you ever heard of Flat Black?
I have.
They just had
Hmm.
a 90s themed
Right.
show, and everybody entered and submitted. I think he picked a certain amount of artists,
Hmm.
but he took in any type of artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you could be a beginner,
Right.
y-
Exactly.
and like Rick Rodriguez's work was. Do you know Rick Rodriguez?
Hmm. Yes.
His work was next to somebody else that's
Hmm.
not a
Right.
professional artist. So that's really cool. I feel
Hmm.
like
That's the
they
same type
really
of stuff.
focus on the like family oriented type of
Hmm.
environments, and um Pete hit Gabby up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
No, I just want there's just the more the better. Like the more things that people can go out with their family to see. Like for instance, your mural.
hmm
Like I'm gonna um go with my wife and hunt that down and take photos. Like it's just something to do, something
Yeah.
to get away from the monotony, the TV, the phone. The phone is really like it's a tool, but it's
You can get caught up.
it cripples you sometimes,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
And
It's I mean, it's awesome to be able to like, they tried to like develop maps and stuff like that, but I think they grew bigger than that. There's so many different places to see
mhm,
public artwork now that it's like unmappable almost. Like
mhm.
I have to create my own for my own work, I think, but it's like you see stuff everywhere now, and it's phenomenal. I
Well, you
love it.
just had the Desert X project come to the desert, and
Mhm.
they also brought in a bunch of installation work.
Yep.
So maybe in the future, not me and you, but us as a desert
Right.
can actually do our own project like that, and
I think that'd be
that would
great.
be super awesome.
I think so too.
So you have work displayed also, like you did some work at Hermanos.
Mhm.
Um, what else are you? Do you have any plans at the Mojave?
Yeah.
Do you,
I'm working with the Mojave Flea on all of their signage. So like at Hermano, I did the mural, but I also painted their logos and lettering and things like that. So
so you're gonna do that all through the store?
they have like different like checkout points and different things like that. So I'm gonna do some signage in there.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it's like, as a painter, I don't just I do oil on canvas. That's where, I do a lot of like my personal work, but
Mhm.
I still, it kind of like merges with like my marketing business, and I like to integrate the creativeness into, what works for businesses. And, it's only data that shows that, artwork and creativity only drives people to buy into the business even more. So, I love, not only just doing like my own personal work, but I like collaborating with businesses to, bring their visions to life. And I find fulfillment in both.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to share or something that you want to go back to? I'm not rushing you off the mic, but I think we got a lot of information.
We did.
Um, I would like to see your work at the
Yeah.
Morongo Valley Fruit Market. That would be super cool. So
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there. Uh,
Put it out in the universe. I
yeah.
know. This past year I haven't been able to do a lot of artwork. Just, the pandemic threw a lot of
Mm.
things in the air, but now that things are getting more safe and things like that, I'm able to, get back into, the creative work and meeting with people and doing things
That's
like this.
super awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us how can we find you? Where
Yeah.
can we?
I'm pretty much everywhere. Gabby B Vasquez,
Mhm.
Gabby B Vasquez.
Is that on every social?
And my website as well.
The same.
Mhm.
Okay.